All right, let's dive straight into it. Today, we're tackling a really important document, the 2024 Digital Threat Report, specifically for India's BFSI sector. Now, if you're in finance, this is obviously crucial stuff. But for all of you preparing for competitive exams, this is absolute gold. It's a joint effort from the big guns, CERT-In, CSR8 and SISA, so you know it's coming right from the source.
So let me ask you something. Think about the last time you used UPI, or logged into your net banking, or even just swiped your card. You're basically stepping onto a digital battlefield every single time. And the big question is, how safe are you really? This isn't some abstract thought experiment. We're talking about the stability of India's entire financial system and, your own hard-earned money. The stakes are incredibly high.
Just how high, you ask? Well, let's put a number on it, because this one really hits home. $2.18 million. That's the average cost of a single data breach in India, according to this report. It's a staggering figure, and it immediately tells you why we need to pay very close attention to what's going on.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the new battlefield of cyber threats. Then we'll go inside the breach with some real case studies. After that, we'll analyze our weak spots, look into the crystal ball at 2025's threats, and lay out a solid battle plan. And stick around because we'll wrap up with some key takeaways specifically for your exams. Let's get started. All right, first up, the new battlefield. You see, India's financial sector is going through this huge digital boom, right? Which is great for all of us, but it's a double-edged sword. All that progress also means there are way more doors and windows for the bad guys to try and break in. And trust me, they are getting a lot smarter. Okay, exam takers, pen and paper time. Here's a term you absolutely have to know, TTPs. It stands for Tactics, Techniques, and Procedures. The easiest way to think about it, it's the attacker's playbook. It's how they operate. If you know their playbook, you can stop just reacting to attacks and start actually predicting their next move. It's a total game changer for defense.
So what's in this new playbook? Well, for one, there's been a huge shift towards social engineering. Think business email compromise and phishing. In fact, phishing attacks in India shot up by an insane 175% in just the first half of 2024. And guess what's fueling this? AI. It's helping attackers write perfect scam emails and even create deepfakes. On top of that, they're not just attacking banks head-on anymore. They're going after the supply chain. You know, the trusted companies that provide software to your bank.
Okay, so we've talked about the theory, but what does this stuff actually look like in the real world? Let's go inside the breach and look at a couple of case studies that show exactly how these tactics are used to cause some serious damage.
So check this out. Our first case is a perfect example of a supply chain attack. Instead of trying to break down the front door of the bank, a notorious ransomware group called RansomXX did something much sneakier. They went after a third-party company that provided services to the bank. They found a tiny crack in that company's defenses and just slipped right in. Nobody even knew they were there.
And once they were inside, their plan was just ruthless. First move, delete all the backups. I mean, that's just a knockout punch right there. Then they unleashed their ransomware, locking up all the files. But here's the real twist, and this is important. They used what's called double extortion. They didn't just say, pay us to get your data back. They said, pay us or we leak all of your customers' sensitive data to the world. That changes everything.
Now let's talk about a different kind of nightmare, the threat that comes from the inside. In this case, you had an employee with high-level access. And for 2 years, think about that, 2 whole years, they were quietly manipulating dormant accounts. They'd order prepaid cards, pump up the balances, pull cash out from ATMs, and then just delete the records like it never happened. A classic insider threat.
So how on earth do you prevent something like that? The report lays out 5 key steps, but honestly, the one you really need to remember is the principle of least privilege, or PALP. It's a super simple idea. People should only have access to the absolute bare minimum they need to do their job, nothing more. It sounds obvious, right? But it's probably one of the most powerful ways to stop both insiders and outsiders in their tracks.
Okay, so these stories are pretty scary, and they all happened because attackers found a gap, a weakness in the defenses. So now let's take a hard look at those gaps. Where exactly is the Indian financial sector falling short?
This chart is super revealing. It puts India's compliance levels right next to the global average. And yeah, we're doing all right on things like data encryption, but look at the 2 big red flags, network security and log monitoring. We're lagging way behind the rest of the world there. And you have to understand, these aren't just percentages on a slide. Each one of those gaps is like an unlocked door, just waiting for an attacker to walk through.
So we know where we're vulnerable right now. That's half the battle. Now let's look to the future. What's coming next? Let's gaze into the crystal ball for 2025 and see what the report says we should be getting ready for.
All right, here we go. The top 7 threats we need to worry about. And for all you studying for exams, I've got a mnemonic for you. It's a little dramatic, but it works. Just remember, deep supply lies about quantum crypto IoT. Let's break it down. Deep for deepfakes, supply for supply chain attacks, lies for LLM prompt hacking, about for adversarial LLMs, and then the last 3 are easy: quantum, crypto, and IoT. Deep supply lies about quantum crypto IoT. Got it? Good.
To really get a sense of how fast things are changing, just look at how supply chain attacks are evolving. The old way was for a hacker to find a bug in some software. The new way, it's way more sophisticated. Imagine an attacker teaching a developer's AI assistant to suggest bad code. They're not hacking the software, they're poisoning the AI that builds the software. The AI itself becomes the weapon. It's a massive shift in thinking.
Okay, so things are getting more complex, more dangerous. What do we do about it? Well, the report doesn't just leave us hanging. It gives us a very clear 3-pillar battle plan to fight back.
Pillar number 1 is people. And here's another easy mnemonic for you exam folks. PPT for protection. That's people, process, and technology. So with people, the big idea is building a security-first culture. And the single most important change recommended is this: ditch the annual training. We need to move to quarterly security training. Things are just changing way too fast for a once-a-year refresher to be effective anymore.
Next up in our PPT framework is process. And the key word here is proactive. We need to stop thinking about security as a wall around our castle. The modern approach is called Zero Trust Architecture, ZTA. The motto is simple: never trust, always verify. It doesn't matter if you're inside or outside the network, every single request has to be checked. It's a complete mindset shift, but it's absolutely necessary.
And the final piece of our PPT plan is technology. Look, this is where we start fighting fire with fire. We need to use AI to spot weird behavior that older tools would miss. And we have to be aggressive about patching things. I mean, get this, a new vulnerability can be discovered and used in an attack in a matter of hours. Not days, not weeks, hours. So continuous patching isn't just a best practice anymore. It's basic survival.
Okay, deep breath. We have covered a ton of information. So now, especially for everyone studying for exams, this is for you. Think of these next slides as your cheat sheets. We've boiled down everything we've talked about into the absolute must-know facts, figures, and concepts. Pay close attention.
First up, the jargon. You need to know these cold. TTPs, the attacker's playbook. BEC, that's business email compromise, the fancy phishing scam. Double extortion, when they encrypt your data and threaten to leak it. PULP, principle of least privilege, give access only when needed. And ZTA, Zero Trust Architecture, trust no one. These are the building blocks. Next, the numbers. You have to remember these. Cost of a data breach in India, $2.18 million. The surge in phishing attacks, a whopping 175%. How fast you have to report an incident to CERT-In? 6 hours. And what are our biggest weaknesses compared to the world? Network security and log monitoring. Memorize those facts.
And finally, let's lock in the big picture strategies. Your main framework is PPT for protection. People, process, technology. For future threats, remember deep supply lies about quantum crypto IoT. The key priorities are shifting to quarterly training, adopting that zero trust mindset, and running continuous vulnerability scans. Look, at the end of the day, this isn't about building bigger walls anymore. It's about being resilient. Because the real question isn't if you'll get attacked, it's when. And how you respond in that moment, well, that's everything.